Hey, how's it going? So today I'm gonna try and go through this real quick with you, but we have the '07 Outlook. Now, I did try shooting a video and I got a little bit too long, so I'm gonna try and condense this one. The problem is that all the lights turn on the dash, and at some point they were bringing it over here and it shut off completely and it did not want to start again. Now, the reason why I'm making this particular video and why it's going to be a little bit longer than my usual 3-minute ones is because I want to show that it doesn't take rocket science or big fancy tools to fix your car. I hear that a lot. Well, cars are all just sensors now. No, they're not. It's still an engine. Yeah, it has added components to it, but especially these older ones, it's not that bad. Yes, newer ones, some niche sensor that needs to be programmed by only the dealership. I know the electric guy that I go to when I'm stumped and I need a little bit of extra help. He said, I'm not programming GM anymore. They're such a freaking pain in the ass. I don't want to deal with them. It's not worth it. I don't make enough money for it. So with the exception of that, everything else is pretty good. For these ones, you really only have to program the PCM to the BCM and some other little computers. Nowadays you do, I believe, have to program in 2024. However, let's troubleshoot this guy. This is exactly what I did on my previous video, completely blind, or this morning on my other video, completely blind. I really didn't know what was wrong with the car. I do now, but I'm going to show you exactly what I did to come to that conclusion. So come on, I get my trusty multimeter. The problem with a lot of people is that they think that it's overwhelming. Don't make things overwhelming. If your car isn't starting right off the bat, if it's not cranking, that's why you'll hear the mechanic say, is it cranking? It's because that gives us a whole thing of cancels out a bunch of stuff. If it's not even starting, we need to look at your battery and your charging system first. So I know that for a fact that it's a fresh battery under the hood. So I am going to check it, because even though it was driven a mile with that fresh battery to my house, it could still be very drained, and that means that the alternator is in fact not working. Now, there is a problem. When I was told that the lights turn on or the dash lit up on this girl, I do not know if she had gone to work and was driving back and it happened and she managed to make it home. I don't know if she got towed home. I don't know if she was leaving home and the car lit up down the street. I don't know if she turned on the car and that's when the lights lit up. I don't know any of that stuff, but I do know that I do have a fresh battery, and at some point my brother that went to pick up the car did start the car, so the battery was good at that given time. Alrighty, so first things first, you want to make sure you do have a good battery, no matter what. Even if you just went to AutoZone and bought it. 12.52, 5.3. It actually read 5.7 this morning. I started up a little bit earlier, and that's why it's 5.3, but it usually is 5.7. Battery is good. So now I know that the battery is good. Let's check if something to the battery, the charging system, is working, or if there's something nicked. This car has the battery in the back, in the second row of seats, underneath the passenger side. So this wire, this top one, goes to the battery. Well, it gave us a pretty solid reading. It wasn't kind of bumpy or anything. So I'm going to trust it for now. This is your starter, and this is your charging cable. Charging cable is this guy. If you're familiar with me, you know that this one went bad on my other Traverse. It was burnt. And this one goes straight to your starter, because your battery has to go straight to your starter. Now, another reason why I say those wires are good is because the car will start once the battery is fresh. If it was nicked, if it was grounding out or something, it would have a harder time. Now, I'm not just going to tell you that, I'm going to show you that. Now that I know that this is 12 volts, I'm going to put this on continuity. I want to make sure that that charging cable now, we're focusing only on the charging. We bypass, we're not going to worry about, not bypass, but we're going to not worry about the cable that comes from the battery down here. And we're going to make sure it has continuity. That's a solid. What I like to do with this is anytime I'm going to test continuity, I make sure that it is indeed working. And it is. So it's kind of like the drill. You pull the trigger multiple times for the drill, and when you get a drill, and you clap the tongs when you get the tongs. So now, all right, so we got two simple steps done and over with. So we know we're getting conductivity charging the battery. All this stuff, all these wires are important that they're not damaged. That's why when I came in here, that's the first thing I came to do, because once the engine warms up, it's a nightmare, and that way I get a good sense of what the battery is up to. Now, this charges your whole system. It all meets right here. This is your fuse box for this particular car. And instead of having the battery here and having the battery post come connect, go to your starter, and then just have a battery post here, usually you only have these two wires. This time around, they decided to put the battery back there. That's what I was talking about. And that's why you have that third wire there. If right now I turn on the car and the alternator was to give me good numbers, then I would suspect something's wrong with that back wire. The reason why the alternator would give me good numbers, it doesn't matter. So let's say that this wire was nicked, right? There's something wrong with this wire, burnt somewhere in the middle, but it still manages to start the car. I know that. I know for a fact it manages to start the car. And it's good for that one jolt. But once it's charging, maybe it's nicked and it's not charging the battery properly. The alternator should still give me the full amount of charge, because it's all being measured right here. I know that these wires are good. So any grievance that the alternator may be giving me is going to point that I have a faulty alternator. If it doesn't, if it was giving me the perfect numbers, then I know that the battery isn't getting charged one way or another. There might be something at the battery that's not letting it charge. It may be loose or something along those lines. Now I know that this wires can't be loose because I tightened them. We had that issue with this car, and I made sure that they were tight. So before I go ahead and start the car, one thing you should know is that the numbers I'm looking for here are anything above 13.7. That's good. 13.5, yeah, I've seen some systems be at that, but it's not good. At lowest, it really should be at 13.7. And the other side of it is 14.4. So that's actually the best ideal. But at 13.87, you're still good. Anything lower than that, you have a weak alternator. Anything lower than 13, you should be glad you made it home. Take it to a shop or fix it. And anything lower than like 11, or as if it drops, if your voltage drops on your battery as you're driving, you're probably not going to make it home or anywhere for that matter. So that's what we're looking for. That's what those numbers mean. That's why we have this handy dandy voltmeter. Look at that, 12.01. Alrighty, so I hear a hissing, and I'll check over here. And it got louder when I moved it over here. That's because it's this guy. So we have a evap leak there, a vacuum leak. All right, so we know where the vacuum leak is coming from, and we know that the alternator is pretty weak. I could check that wire, maybe it is burnt, but it seems pretty solid. I tugged on it and everything's working fine. We come over here and we get 12.45. We did drop some 0.7 voltage. I don't want to keep straining that battery, but all roads point that we have a weak alternator that needs to be replaced, period. With that said, it's the only one of the very few times that I do disconnect the battery, because I've had this spark on me when I'm replacing this wire right here. But it's done. It's diagnosed. Sometimes it's not as easy, and this is why mechanics will charge you $100, $150 for a diagnostics fee. When they do that, make sure you tell them, and that's gonna solve my problem. And when they say yes, you tell them do it. I know it's hard, I know money's tight, I understand that, and this is why we're learning a few things, because at that point they just charged you to look at it, to do this diagnostics, and they should be pretty damn sure of what they're doing. I have in other vehicles run a few other tests to be 100%, because I'm not going to make somebody spend money, because then I'm going to feel like an idiot and they may not come back to me. So we didn't use expensive tools. We used a $20 voltmeter from 10 years ago. Nowadays these are about 40 bucks. It was free for me because AutoZone gave me the rewards, and I decided to buy this, and best rewards I've ever spent. And we just used our eyes and ears for the vacuum leak. I could have attached my smoke machine to it, and it would have given me exactly what I wanted, but it's kind of a pain to have it out and make sure we're taking that ductwork off and capping it off, and it's just not my thing. I'd rather just do it this way. So now I'm gonna fix that. I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna check what's wrong with the stability track. I think it was just because of the low battery and getting forced around that it didn't shut off. I'm gonna shut it off. I'm gonna run it and see how it feels, and if it comes back, then we can troubleshoot that. But if it doesn't, great. But usually I've seen a few times that that's happened. Actually, on the Avalanche, I had the stability track off and the wheel sensor was off. So it could be that too, but we won't know unless we shut it off. And usually those codes, I like them because they turn back on really quick, versus other ones that take, a few days of you driving it to be like, oh, there it is again. But hopefully this helps you out. This encourages you to work on your car. It's not the end of the world. It's not the most difficult thing. When you are working on your cars, you're not checking. If I have this issue right here, I knew where to go, right? 3 simple tests. I didn't go check the oil. I didn't go check the reservoir on either one right here, or the radiator. You don't have to make it overwhelming. It's charge system, what charges the battery, what the battery stands at, and you're good to go. So have a good one. Alrighty, so I had the AC running and the fan was on high and it wasn't giving me the reading I wanted, and because the car is stationary. But we changed the alternator. Turn on our handy dandy. Look at that, 13.4443. That's perfect. That's ideal. That's what we wanted to be at. Um, you don't need fancy tools to fix your car. You can just get a really basic, especially during the holidays, Husky set, and that's good to go, and expand on that. Add better components. My swivel head ratchets, I bought those afterwards, but I had a basic ratchet just to do basic things. I mean, you can do everything with it, but it's so much better when you have the swivel head. My swivel head wrenches, my ratcheting wrenches, all that stuff adds up, and it makes your job easier. But again, you don't need any of that. It just takes a little bit longer, a little bit more effort, and you save yourself a lot of money. So there you go. This one's wrapped up. Hopefully this helps you out, and you can see that it was that after a troubleshooting. And you can just jump straight into testing the alternator, but you really should check afterwards the cables, make sure nothing's loose, because you could replace a whole alternator, and I've seen it happen, and it ended up being a loose battery terminal.